How do you overcome stress, anxiety, frustration, anger, when you're not sure of the source or where it's coming from, what's causing it? How can you outrun a problem when you're not even sure what the problem is? How can you heal a wound when you're not sure of where the wound is or how you even received the wound? How do you overcome trauma when the greatest fear that you live with is confronting the problem that has been haunting you? How do you overcome trauma when you're not even sure where the trauma derived from? Where did it come from? How did it find itself in your life? Affecting your very well-being, affecting you every day. When you're not even sure the source of the trauma you're feeling. Let's talk about it, people. We all experience trauma. You, me, we all experience trauma. And if you didn't experience it, you've all been witnessing to trauma. Think about it. If you're on social media, you're on World Star, you see a person get knocked out cold, you experience trauma. You witnessed it. You witnessed someone experiencing trauma. If you ever watch news sites and you see it shooting at a nightclub, at a movie theater, in a neighborhood that you live in or nearby, you witnessed some form of trauma. If you were a member of any of these things we just talked about, you were a person who experienced trauma. If you were verbally abused, physically abused, at some point in your life, you were a victim of trauma. And trauma can be put in your life in many different ways. See, sometimes you're not a direct victim of trauma. And that's the thing we don't understand about it. So a lot of times we're experiencing stress, anxiety, frustration, and anger. And we're trying to understand, why are we having these feelings? We're trying to find a source of these feelings, but coming up short. We're sitting there pulling through and combing through our entire life, our childhood, all of our memories, the mistakes that we made, trying to find the foundation of the trauma we're feeling, but coming up empty. Not realizing that sometimes trauma can be passed down through generations. That's right, people. We call it generational curses. We call it generational curses, family curses, when we're experiencing things from other family members. When we're experiencing something that another family member experienced. A lot of times it works the same way with trauma. See, your mother, your grandparent may experience some sort of trauma, and through unknowingly, they pass that trauma on to you. It wasn't because they wanted to, but sometimes trauma is passed through in the form of just trying to protect you. We all want to protect our children. You all want to protect our loved ones from not experiencing something that we experience. But sometimes in the midst of trying to do that, what we do is we pass down our own personal trauma. You not understand what I mean by passing down personal trauma, people? Let me elaborate on it. You become the child of a victim of a person who was in a movie theater that got shot up. Naturally, you want to protect your child from ever experiencing that type of pain, that type of threat, that type of near-death experience, so you start to put walls up. You start to build a fortress around your child. Not only you, but your children and every person you love. Denying your daughter, your son, the opportunity to go hang out at parties, hang out with friends, to ever go to a movie theater. As a form of protecting them, you force them into isolation. You're constantly reminded by the trauma, but you also reminded your children about the dangers of the world. Unknowingly, you're creating the trauma. You're passing down trauma to your children. A lot of times you're sexually abused. Person is sexually abused. We talked about this in previous episodes. And the fact that you feel so traumatized by that encounter, that a lot of times it puts you in a place where you can't protect your own children. Sometimes, through that trauma, you go and relive this experience by forcing someone else to feel what you felt by your hands, passing down trauma. We can keep going on and on about how family members pass down trauma. The point is, people, we all experience it. Some of us experience anxiety. Anxiety expands to different things. Anxiety can deal with money. Anxiety dealing with money or being filled with fear of being broke. Some of us grow up and our parents grew up broke. They grew up poor. We talk about it, people. We talk about shopping for sneakers at a supermarket, getting teased at school. You grow up broke, so every bit of money you get, you try to hoard it. You're afraid to spend. You live in a mental prison where you're afraid to buy things. Or you try to force things on your children, over-purchase things. and you pass this trauma down to your children. There's many forms of anxiety. There's many forms of trauma. Why can I speak on trauma, people? Because like many of you, I experienced my dosage of trauma. And I'm going to be willing and transparent to share it with you. Without going into too many details of people, relationships, I experienced trauma. For instance, people, I had issues with relationships. Until I met my wife, I had issues with maintaining and keeping relationships. I had an issue. Why did I have an issue, people? I was traumatized to get close to a person because I was fearful if I let myself love someone, what if they reject me? What if they refuse to love me? What if they pull back? Could my heart actually handle that kind of trauma again? Because I had experienced it before. Not through a typical relationship with another woman, but a relationship with other family members, with people I loved. And not in the physical type of form, mentally. You have people in your life and you create bondage with your mother, your father, your aunts, your uncles, grandparents. And sometimes when those bonds are broken, it affects your future relationships. And you don't understand at the time that this mother, your father, is experiencing trauma from their lives because maybe their mother, their father, had broken some kind of relationship with them, didn't give them the love, left their lives suddenly, causing a hole in their heart that they passed down to you. Point being, people, it happened to me. It gave me a hard time to let someone in, to love someone, to believe that someone actually can love me. I had issues with trust, people. I still do. Still do. I am recovering from having issues with trust. I'm not going to say I still do. I'm recovering from it. I've been lied to a lot being young. In the mental picture of being lied to, forced me to say a word that I do not like to use on the show, but hate. It made me hate people that lied. Hate people that lied to me. Because it causes a trauma to make me relive certain moments of my life that caused me a great deal of pain, of mental pain. Think about it, people. You all have triggers in your life. You all have triggers in your life that you experience some type of trauma, and some of us don't even know the triggers that we had. And we'll get to that in a second. But let's focus on the trauma that you know of. You deal with anxiety, you deal with stress, you deal with frustration because someone wronged you. Someone mistreated you. Maybe you was in a relationship and someone cheated on you. Maybe someone took someone from you. They killed someone that you loved. Someone walked out of your life, causing you trauma. Sometimes trauma could be a near-death experience. You just went out for a good night with your friends, hanging out at a nightclub, just wanted to get a drink. Then someone just had the great idea that they want to come and shoot up the nightclub. You just wanted to go out and catch a movie. New movie came out. You just wanted to go to a movie theater and check it out. Someone had the idea to come shoot up a movie theater. You were just going to the grocery store because your mom, dad, husband, wife, aunt, uncle, grandparent asked you to pick up some milk. Someone had a great idea to shoot up a grocery store. We can continue on to things like schools. You're off at college, just on campus, trying to better your life. Send your children to school. These are some of the traumas that we experience. I'm painting a picture. You pretty much get it. The point is, people, trauma is everywhere. We live in a dangerous world, and we're constantly reminded of all things that can hurt us and take things from us. But today, we're not interested in what something or what someone took from us. We're interested in how we're going to get it back. How we're going to put it in to family trauma. How we're going to put it in to this self-isolation, this self-prison that we have been putting ourselves in, that we've been living in. But we have to dig deep inside of ourselves. We have to be willing to make changes. We have to be willing to confront what we're feeling. But we have to be willing also to grow, change, to open ourselves up to not only feel love, but to give love. Emotionally, sometimes when we deal with trauma, one of the things about trauma is it causes us to be numb. We talk about love. And that's the one thing that this world really needs right now more than anything is love. But a lot of us can't give love because we become numb from trauma. we become put in a position where we are dealing with fight or flight mode. If you don't know what fight or flight mode means, we become overly aggressive where everything is an attack on us and we feel that we must lash out and fight back. Or flight mode, when something gets too stressful, when we get triggered, we're running for the hills. These are all the effects of trauma, people. And unfortunately, we can't outrun trauma because it's all around us. With the social media age, with everything with news, with so many, our phones constantly attached to our hands, tablets, computers attached to us, it's always there. We have a window to the world. And as the window to the world broadens, as it gets bigger, we just find out how much more dangerous the world truly is. How, no matter how big of a bubble we create, fear is out there. And a lot of times we don't know how to deal with it. We're not taught how to deal with it. Because see, if we are told to go get help, and we're told to speak to a counselor, a lot of us are beaten down. Told that we're weak because we go speak to a counselor. That's a whole another form of trauma. It's mental abuse, verbal abuse, causing verbal abuse trauma. But going to get help is not a necessary thing that we can do, because if we do that, then we're coming across weak to people, and then we don't want to feel that way because we already feeling weak. We already feeling defenseless because we experienced these situations where we're not able to defend ourselves. And the last thing you want to feel is more defensive. Well, people, I'm here to tell you this. I'm here to give you a separate point of view on how to look at that. There are going to be people who tell you going to get help is weak. There are people who are going to tell you that you don't need to get help, that you need to just get over some things. There's going to be people who tell you grab a shovel and bury the trauma that you're feeling deep inside you. But we know as we bury things, what happens? Over time, it gets uncovered. And those skeletons that we try to hide in the closet reveals themselves at the most unopportune time. So we're not here to bury things. We're here to get rid of them. We're here to come back and take back our lives. So let's start with that. Let's take back our life. Let's take back ourselves. Let's take back control of ourselves. Let's give ourselves back a gift today. Let's give ourselves back freedom. Freedom from the prison we've been living in. Freedom from the bubble, the box that we live in. Let's take back our power today, people. And let's start right now. When dealing with trauma, yes, you're going to experience triggers. There are going to be triggers constantly around you. But there's steps you can take to fight back against those triggers. One of the steps is not isolating yourself, people. The dangers of isolating yourself is that you're putting yourself on an island. You're putting yourself alone. Now, as they say, idle time's the devil's playground. The more you leave yourself alone, self-containment, what happens is you give yourself more time for your mind to think. And your mind's already operating through this trauma. It's already reliving this moment that has happened. We don't want to give our minds time to sit here and keep dwelling on what someone or something that happened to us or what was passed down to us. So what should we do? Exercise is a good source. Exercise is a good source to overcome trauma, anxiety, stress, anger. It's an outlet to let go of all this pain you're feeling. It's a way of making yourself feel better about yourself. I know sometimes you exercise, you lift weights, you do some push-up stuff, your body starts hurting, your arms start hurting, your legs start hurting, but you know what that is? That's you strengthening your muscles in your arms, your legs, your body, but also strengthening the muscles into your mind. But see, when you exercise, a lot of times we distract ourselves. Me personally, I'm not going to lie to you. When I exercise, I like to watch movies and stuff. I like to put a TV show on or a movie. But when you're trying to overcome trauma using exercising, I have to tell you, people, that's not an option that we need. Because see, we don't need a distraction from our trauma. We need an outlet from it. So we need to remove the distractions. And we need to get comfortable with our minds when we exercise it. We need to focus on the mental picture that we want to build for ourselves. It's not the mental picture of sitting here reliving the trauma of what someone passed down to us, what someone did to us, what someone said about us. It's about overcoming that boundary, that barrier. It's about sitting there teaching ourselves to not let ourselves become a victim to the trauma that was created. So while we're exercising, we're not just exercising our body. We're not just cleaning up our body. We're using this time to also detoxify our minds of this trauma that we're feeling. Now, let me explain to you something, people, because I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to confuse you. I'm not telling you one 30-minute workout is going to be the end-all, be-all, going to be the uncovering of trauma. It's going to take time. It may take days. It may take weeks. Sometimes it may take years, but constantly working at it will be the very thing and be a big step towards ending and defeating that trauma, releasing yourself out of prison. The other thing, we talk about isolation, people. We talk about the danger of isolation. Don't do it. Try to reconnect with old friends. Reconnect with people who you separated from because of the trauma. Not because they were the ones who caused the trauma to be in your life. Not because they did something to you. If they did, those are not people you want to reconnect with. But those friends that you pushed out your life. Now, me personally, I talk to you, people. I told you. You know, before my wife, I was pushing people away. I was constantly pushing people away. Even when I'm married, even with my wife right now, there's times I catch myself trying to push her away. And I got to remind myself not to do that. You have to reconnect with the people who you pushed out of your life, who was only there to help you. There's nothing wrong with accepting help. Understand, some people, I need help, you need help, we all need help. Go try and lift a 100-pound TV by yourself. Some of you can do it. Some of you can't. Does it make you weak because you ask for help? Or are you a smarter person because you realize instead of trying to hurt yourself to prove something to somebody, you better yourself by proving to yourself that you're smart enough to know when you need to get help and how to seek it. But when you're reconnected with them friends, don't feel obligated to sit here and talk about your trauma. To try to get advice and connect with them based on your trauma. Try to get advice on how you're dealing with it, not to have a conversation about it. When you reconnect with friends, when you're sitting there getting together with friends, don't talk about your trauma. Talk about everything but your trauma. Talk about your favorite movie, favorite sport, your favorite clothes, your favorite place to shop, your favorite food, your favorite restaurant. How's your family? How's their family? Have conversations outside of it. It's important to be careful who you're speaking about, especially when it comes to trauma. Because not everybody understands what you're dealing with. Not everybody is good listeners to be able to give you the advice you need to overcome that trauma. They may not have the experience. They don't understand what you're feeling. If you're feeling anxiety, there's a lot of people that don't understand a person feeling with anxiety, dealing with anxiety. There's some people who don't understand when you're dealing with stress, when you're dealing with anger. And when you try to have a conversation with them like, hey, you know, I'm dealing with anger issues. I don't understand why I'm getting mad. And you're looking for advice from them. You're looking for them to give you advice on how to overcome the anger. They may tell you, well, look, you live in a huge house. You drive a nice car. What you angry about? You got a great wife or a great husband. What you angry about? You got a swimming pool in your backyard. I ain't got no swimming pool. And look at you and say, what are you angry about? But not understand is that, see, your anger derives from something, not from what you have or your possessions or materialistic things. Your anger might derive from something that happened to you or something that happened that wasn't in your control. It may happen, your anger might derive from something that happened in your mother's life, your grandparents' life that was passed down to you. Your anger derives from something else, but they don't understand that because they can't see past your materialistic things. So when you're reconnecting with friends, it's very important to not focus on talking about what your issues are, what trauma are you experiencing. They may not understand it. They may not have the capabilities to sit here and help you work through it. If you feel the need to talk to someone, you need to find that one friend, that good friend that has the capability of listening and can give you advice not based off their experiences, but that can sit here and analyze, listen, digest what you're saying, and then come back at you with steps and support that you need to help you overcome the anxiety, stress, the anger that you're truly feeling. You have to find someone you can trust. Now, like I told you, I have trust issues. So it's very difficult for me. When I first meet somebody, the first question I'm asking is, what do you want? What you trying to do? It's not a good thing. But I have to also understand, you got to open yourself up to allow someone to help you, or there's no way you're ever going to overcome the trauma. You can't sit here and look at every single person as the person who hurt you. You have to learn to separate that. We talked about that in a previous episode. It's okay to find a counselor. Maybe it's a person from your church. Maybe it's a close relative. Maybe it's a close friend. Someone to confide to. But make sure when you confide to people, when you talk to people about your trauma, they're not going to judge you for it. Find someone who's not going to judge you. Who's not going to sit here and point out all the materialistic things and how greater your life is than theirs. They're going to see you. They're going to see your pain, understand your pain, and help you through it. Make sure you see it. Make amends for the things you may have done. A lot of times when we experience trauma, and this is definitely when we deal with people who had been sexually abused. A lot of times what happens is, and when you talk to, when you dissect people who commit sexual acts or rape, molestation, what you understand is they have been themselves sexually abused. In most cases, they've been sexually abused. And they feel that getting their power back is by stealing someone else's power away from them. That's not the case. That's not the case. You will never gain your own power back, your own self-love, your own freedom by stealing someone else's away from them. All you're going to do is introduce someone else to their own prison while not freeing yourself. You're just adding more time, more guilt to your prison sentence. So if you know someone who experienced sexual abuse, if you know someone who were raped, sexually assaulted, sexually harassed, comfort them, guide them, support them, help them find the help they need to overcome that trauma. And so that they don't cause trauma into someone else's life. Understand something, people. When we talk about exercise, when we experience trauma, what's one of the things we do? Trauma causes us to freeze up. Trauma causes us to literally, physically freeze up when we experience something. Like if you've seen a snake before, you're out jogging, and someone told me a story before. You're out jogging, and you see something like a snake. A lot of times what happens is you'll freeze up. Your mind is shut down. You don't know how to respond to it. You cannot react to it. We all love to say what we do, what we will do when we're in a certain situation. Don't we love to say that? If we're in a situation, what we will do, excuse me, I can't talk to that. We're watching a movie and we see things that happen in the movie. Like, if that was me, I would do this and I would do that. We see an action movie, I wouldn't have turned there. We watch a horror movie, I wouldn't have fell. I would have gotten to drive the car. I wouldn't have hid behind the shed. We all like to talk about what we would do. Not understanding that when you're in this moment, when you're experiencing something, we will all like to do something, but based on the experiences that we had and the trauma of the situation, sometimes our brain will shut down. Our ability to think and react is not working, and we're forced to freeze. We're working through this, working through trauma. Like I said, talking to people, exercising, confronting the very thing that hurts you may be the best way to overcome this trauma, to overcome these experiences. Trauma can derive from so many different things. A family member broke in my house one night, people. Family member was on drugs, broke into my house one night. True story. Broke into my house, me and my wife sleeping. He didn't come in to steal anything. The drugs was making him paranoid. He felt the cops was chasing. The cops was chasing him. He woke me out of my sleep. And it caused a great deal of trauma for a long time in my life. Just recently got over this trauma, people. The trauma I experienced from that was I felt helpless. Like a lot of you do when you experience trauma. I felt helpless at the moment. I felt bad because my job as a man, as a husband, was to protect my wife. And I let this person get close enough to me, close enough to my wife, to a point where they could have done harm. They were able to get into my home without me knowing. That caused trauma. That I didn't hear them come in. Now there's factors of why I didn't hear them come in. There were little things I did throughout the day that would inhibit them inhibit me from being able to hear them come through, but that's not the point. The point was that that experience caused a lot of trauma. It caused trauma to the point where next place I lived, I had to live up high. We got an apartment up high where no one could easily access it. I became increasingly interested in security, making sure doors, windows are locked, making sure things are not under my window, making me hypersensitive to sounds, more aware to my surroundings. Growing up in a bad neighborhood, listen, people, I experienced trauma there. People getting killed, shot. I've seen people get shot when I was 8 years old. I experienced things that an 8-year-old I shouldn't experience. Had guns pulled to my head. I experienced a lot of trauma in my life. I had to overcome a lot of things. Some things I haven't overcame yet, people. Still working towards it. Still working through it. And so are you. And I'm telling you all my experiences to tell you this, people. You're not alone in what you're feeling. You're not alone in what you're going through. And though many people would like you to put a cap on, a time limit on when you're over your anxiety, your stress, when you're over that time that you may have been molested or raped, sexually assaulted, they may want you to get over that time where you were brutally attacked, physically, emotionally, mentally. They may want you to get over that, and they may want a time limit on when you're supposed to get over. But let me tell you something, people. There is no time limit. The time limit has to be set by us. But we have to put the actions in place. We have to put ourselves, our bodies, our minds in motion to be overcome these things. We have to condition ourselves so that not only we live in trauma no more, that we no longer force our family members, our loved ones, our children to experience this trauma. The ending of generational curses, the ending of trauma being passed through family, through generation of family, has to start and end with you. We have to put an ending to it. We got to put an ending to what we're feeling. Now, we talked about the different steps. We talked about getting help. We talked about reconnecting with old friends. We talked about exercising. We talked about not self-isolating yourself. Not putting yourself in isolation. Going out. Going to social events. Going to support groups. Enter support groups to talk to people who are like-minded, people who went through some of the similar traumas you went through, so you can see people. This is so important when you're going through anxiety, when you're going through stress, when you're going through anger. Some things that you don't understand what you're feeling, sometimes it's best to talk to someone. Be supported by a group of people who understand what you're feeling and maybe further along than you to help you understand what you're feeling, because you may not know that this trait that you're feeling, this trauma that you're feeling, is not due to something someone done directly to you, or that you have done, or something you may feel like you caused, or something that you may be forgotten because you buried it. It may be due to something that was done before you were even born. That was done to someone that you love, a family member of yours, your mother, your father, your grandparents, and it was forcefully changed, handed down to you. Handed down to you like them old clothes that you hated when you got hand downs from your brother and sister. It was handed down to you. And even though you don't want it and you want to pass it off, it's not that simple. We don't want to pass it to someone else. We don't want to pass the trauma, the anxiety, stress, what we're feeling to someone else. We want to treat it like that trash in our kitchen. We want to get rid of it. We want to set fire to it. We want to burn it down so that it can never hurt us or anyone else. Understand some people. We can't outrun trauma. Like I said, the window to the world is getting bigger. And as we see more, we experience more, we open ourselves up for more trauma to come. But that doesn't mean we need to shut ourselves down. It doesn't mean we need to hide. It means we need to strengthen our spirit, our mind, our soul. Strengthen yourself, people. Make yourself stronger so when you encounter this trauma, you have the ability to fight back. Know that you're not alone. There are support groups who can help you. There are friends who want to be there to love you, to show you that you're loved, to show you that you're not alone. Not to sit here and have conversations with you about your trauma, but to give you a vacation from your problems. There are people who are out there. There's counselors, there's loved ones, there's church members. Whatever your religion is, there's someone out there to help you. There's someone out there that just want to listen to you. Remember, people, exercise. Exercise your body. Because exercising your body can make you feel better about yourself. It can help you overcome that trauma. More importantly, people, remember to love yourself. To appreciate everything about you. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And to know that anything that's not good about you, anything that you're not happy with, you have the power and ability to change it. We have the ability to overcome trauma. I'm not a survivor. I'm not a victim. I'm an overcomer of trauma. And I'm going to continue my journey. And I'm going to continue to walk with you on your journey to overcome your trauma. Understand, you're not alone and you'll never be alone. And if you can't find a family member, someone you love, to speak to, I'm always here to talk to you. And I will always love you. I want to thank you for joining me for another episode of the Past and Present Podcast. And until next time I talk to you, or I see you people, I only got one thing left to say to y'all. Stay tuned. Peace.